Mother Jones released the results of a big-time investigative report that they did that reveals how terrible for the environment illegal marijuana cultivation is. They focused on marijuana farming in California's Emerald Triangle, which is apparently an area where this stuff happens all the time. And what they found is, quote, bunkers lit with pollution-spewing diesel generators, plants doused with restricted pesticides, and deforested slopes that choke off salmon streams during the rainy season. Now, of course, those things are horrendous for the planet. I mean, restricted pesticides and deforestation that screws up salmon streams and diesel spewing all over the place in these areas. In fact, many growers even use rat poison to protect seedlings, and that's a tactic that's, of course, been banned from crops. Like, you can't do that with crops when the crops are legally regulated, because we understand that that's dangerous. So there's government regulations that prevents that. They don't want people consuming products that have been essentially right next to or had rat poison on top of them. So it's some crazy stuff. So the findings and the results of this investigative report, the idea is simple, man. Because marijuana is illegal, we have all these environmental problems associated with making it. You wouldn't have to have pollution-spewing diesel generators or plants doused with restricted pesticides or, salmon streams getting fucked up or rat poison being used if all this stuff was legal and regulated. Because if it's legal and regulated, you don't need generators. You can use safe pesticides, not restricted pesticides. You don't need to do deforestation. You don't need to use rat poison because you have other ways that we can handle it, and regulations and rules will prevent you from using rat poison. So yet again, what we're seeing here is the exact same thing that happened with Prohibition when there was Prohibition against alcohol. You remember that? A lot of people don't know this, but when alcohol was illegal in the U.S. and they had the speakeasies and all that stuff, and the mafia got rich off of alcohol because it was illegal, but there was still this massive demand, so they came in and got rich off of selling it, a lot of people died from drinking alcohol. And I'm not talking about just your regular alcohol poisoning and overdose, intoxication. No, I'm talking about they would make the alcohol in bathtubs and cut it with oftentimes toxic chemicals. And if you got a bad batch of alcohol, you would die from drinking one glass of alcohol. That didn't happen when it was legal. When it was legal, you wouldn't have to cut it in a bathtub with these gross, toxic, possibly toxic chemicals, because there were safe ways of making it that the government could look after and say, okay, well, that's allowed and that's not allowed, and this is the right way you do it, and this is the wrong way you do it. You know, it's also very similar to prostitution. If you go to Hunts Point in New York or any area where prostitution is illegal, but it exists, and it's just this unregulated black market, what happens? There's transmission of STDs, there's a problem with AIDS and gonorrhea and chlamydia and drug abuse and pimps that are just hurting their women and all this stuff, man. But if you go to just outside of Las Vegas and Nevada where it's legal, there's never been a single STD transmitted. Why? Because they test them. They test them and make sure it's safe, and it's regulated, and it's efficient, and the girls get paid a decent wage, and there's labor rules, and all these different things. So the problem with every single one of these different areas is when it is illegal, all these bad things happen.